Now I'd like to invite our special guest to the stage, so please join me giving a warm welcome to Sean Hagerty, Managing Director for Vanguard Europe.
Morning, everybody. And thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. We really appreciate you attending the conference and thank Bloomberg for sponsoring or holding it with us. Today's conference comes at a perfect time for a few reasons. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the launch of the first ETF in the US. They've grown globally over 20% per year in the last decade. Amazing growth. And they're just getting started. I'm thrilled to be here with you today talking about an industry that I love and I've spent many decades in, and a product that I believe in. And there's a lot going on in the industry right now. The usually slow-moving tectonic plates of the asset management industry are moving and breaking loose and changing the landscape from underneath our feet as dramatically and quickly, I think, as any time in my decades-long career. The formula for success in the past, star high-performing active portfolio managers who could command high fees, has changed forever. The winning firms offer low-cost ETFs capturing broad market exposures. Two disruptive forces are behind this secular shift: the rise of indexing and the redefinition of advice, and I'd like to talk about both. These forces favor ETFs to become the global investment vehicle of choice. ETFs are positioned not only to capitalize on, but to propel these disruptions. The first disruption let me talk about is the rise of indexing. Well, obviously, we believe there are many benefits to indexing. We are Vanguard, after all, and I think we kind of invented indexing for the masses. Its rise has been largely the result of the failure of active. Specifically, active managers' failure to lower their cost in the face of a low-return, low-alpha environment. Index funds and ETFs have won because active has failed to adapt. As you all well know, active management has always been a zero-sum game, meaning there's a winner and there's a loser. Excess return must be confiscated from somebody else. 30 years ago, it was a lot easier. Professional managers simply preyed on the amateurs, trading on their accounts, which represented about 60 to 80% of the market at the time. It was the wolves preying on sheep. Well, the sheep got smart and hired their own asset managers. And today, 70 to 80% of all assets globally are professionally managed. It's CFA against CFA. It's Bloomberg terminal against Bloomberg terminal. The zero-sum game is much tougher. And in fact, with such heightened competition, the distribution of excess returns has dropped by 60%. Unfortunately, fees have not followed suit. The average active expense ratio in most jurisdictions is still over 100 basis points. That means successful PMs must beat their benchmarks by more than 100 basis points before they can add any value at all. It's a very tough task. So while many skilled active managers can find excess return, they quickly swamp it with their high fees. Their net returns sink below their index. In Europe, 90% of active equity funds and 93% of active fixed income funds failed to outperform their benchmark over the past 15 years. And low-cost index funds have outperformed the vast majority of their active counterparts in almost every major market and asset class over 5 and 10 years. Adding to the advantage is market expectations in the future. We're all facing what is likely going to be a low-return environment over the next 10 years. For a European investor, Vanguard's 10-year nominal return outlook for a global 60-40 portfolio could be as low as 3%, compared with the historical average of the past decade of 8.4%. In this kind of a low-return environment, costs matter even more. The average active portfolio today chews up easily 1 to 2%. If you add on advisory fees, platform fees, that expected return is gobbled up by fees pretty quickly. Compound that over time and you have a real shortfall. Even another reason that low-cost ETFs are a much better solution for the future environment. Let me move to the second disruption, the redefinition of advice. And I know I'm probably speaking to the converted in this audience because I think that some countries are leading the way with the way we think advice can and will be disrupted in the future. Traditional advisors in the past looked to add value by understanding their clients' wealth goals and then setting up the most tax-efficient portfolio composed of fund managers with a promise to outperform. Compensation was driven largely by commissions and retrocessions, often misunderstood by the investor. In the US, as well as several other markets, including the country we are in today, that model is rapidly changing. And it's interesting, in the US, it's not really about regulations. I think in the UK and here it is. But post-GFC, advisors realized that active managers were too inconsistent to build their businesses on. 6 years ago, we published seminal research that revealed that an advisor would be better off focusing on controlling portfolio cost with low-cost ETFs, being tax efficient, rebalancing regularly, and keeping their clients from chasing returns, rather than wasting their time trying to find the best managers. These simple disciplines could add as much as 300 basis points over the typical investor trying to pick the hot funds. We call that advisor's alpha. Today, technology also can easily speed up the proper diversification of a portfolio, find the proper goals for an individual investor, rebalance regularly, and manage it tax efficiently. Technology is allowing to do that better, faster, and cheaper, putting even more downward pressure on fees. The advisor is fast becoming more of a financial planner and less of a portfolio manager. Concurrently, significant regulatory pressure in many markets is driving increased fee transparency. As a result, advisors are moving to fee-based models. In a fee-based model, keeping fund costs low is essential. All fees come out of one spot, after all, the client's return. If fees are high, it's hard to justify the additional advice fee. In 2013, just in the US, think about this for a second, commissions accounted for 45% of an advisor's compensation in the entire market. That number declined drastically to 32% in 2016, and this year is expected to be at 23%. And we think what's happened in the US is already happening in Europe, and clearly already happening in jurisdictions like this because of regulation changes. Of course, the transformation is happening in some markets faster than others. So for those who are outside of the markets where it's already a regulatory change, there are some markets where few distributors have a chokehold on the market and still insist on a conflict-laden commission and retrocessions to pay for advice. The change will be slower in those markets. Fortunately, the regulatory trend in Europe is towards better transparency, matching the fee for advice and service provided rather than being buried in the product. This move towards transparent, fee-based advice will drive an even greater adoption of ETFs in the future. In closing, we've seen it happen in the US, we've seen it happen in the UK, we've seen it happen in this country. We think as indexing rises and the world of advice is redefined, ETFs are positioned to be the global investment vehicle of choice. ETFs are low-cost, versatile vehicles that give you diversified direct market exposure. They outperform active products. They fit well in a fee-based model. They're ideal building blocks for custom solutions, and they're just getting started. Thank you for your time today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.